you're not really aware of how much your body is taking from the stress and the life and raising kids. And I had gotten sick. I was actually diagnosed with hyperthyroid. What was very difficult is betrayal. I'd never really experienced it on that level where it wasn't just one person. She had allied all people we had tried, friends we'd had for years. But I focused on me for the first time in my life. It was wonderful. How does she need to be comforted? How does she need to be loved? Questions I didn't ever ask myself.
Welcome to Mission Activated, where we bring you the stories of individuals who've awakened to their true purpose and are living a life of passion, impact, and alignment. I'm Evelyn Clark, your host, and I believe that when you're on mission, everything falls into place. Here, we share the journeys of those who've discovered their unique path and embraced their soul's calling. It's not just about making money in life and in business, it's about making a difference, living on purpose, and inspiring yourself and others along the way. Let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to the show. My next guest is Wonderful Morrison. Yes, that is her real name. She has been a vibrant force reimagining midlife as the era for bold reinvention and unapologetic authenticity. For over 25 years, she's taken life head-on as an entrepreneur, devoted mum, and a fearless woman who knows how to rise from life's toughest blows. Together with her husband, she built a thriving business from scratch, crafting a journey woven with love and resilience. And they were betrayed from a trusted family member, and it nearly shattered all that they'd created. Yet Wonderful chose to rise out of that and use that heartbreak as a launching pad for what she calls fierce reinvention. She didn't just rebuild her business, she rebuilt her spirit, emerging bolder and braver and with this undeniable fire within her. She's the podcast host of The Evolution of the Fempreneur. She has a YouTube channel of the same name. She is a published author in 2 books, and she studied martial arts for 25 years and holds a 2nd-degree black belt. Look out for Wonderful. Don't mess with her. She says, in her words, midlife isn't a slowdown, it's the power decade, and she's here to inspire everyone to live it to the fullest. I have great pleasure in welcoming to the podcast Wonderful Morrison. Wonderful Morrison, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to be in an amazing conversation with you.
Likewise. And you know, just for the audience's benefit, you know, when we first met, we just clicked, we hit it off, we had an amazing conversation, then we had another amazing conversation.
Yeah.
So it's just been so beautiful to connect with a fellow, I don't know, I guess a fellow warrioress. You are. You remind me of this. You've got this warrior spirit in you, but you're just full of love and heart, and yeah, it's really beautiful. So,
well, I feel like you are. I don't know if there's a show called Witcher, and there are these magi's, I think is what they call them, and they're like magical beings that are human that can pull forth out of people the things that is needed. And that's how I felt like in our first conversation. I just wanted to tell you everything. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
That's right. First date, you just spill it all. It was great. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you. Well, let's see what comes out today on this call. First of all, whereabouts are you located in the world?
I am currently in the south of southeast in the U.S. in South Carolina. But I hail from Washington State, which is the furthest west of the United States. So I'm here visiting my grandchildren.
That's beautiful. But for those Australian or other listeners who are not from the US, get out your atlases and have a look where South Carolina is and Washington State. That's cool. Well, thank you for joining me. It's Tuesday evening for you. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's about 5 o'clock, right around there.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I can tell you that Tuesday night is good. It's now Wednesday morning here in Australia. It always cracks me up how we're on different days. It's nice. Well, let's get started. Now, this is all about you, and I would love for you to start by sharing with us your journey. So, take us back to the beginning, and share with us the journey you've been on that's brought you to where you are today.
Ooh, that's a good one. So I'm going to just paint a little picture of the real beginning. When I was 22 years old, my husband and I were given the opportunity to start a business, an already existing business, something we really loved, health and fitness, martial arts. And we're like, oh, this is amazing. But we're 22, we're in college. And also I am pregnant with our first child. But when you're young like that, it's like that you're young and stupid. You just go for it. So we decided, let's do it. Let's see what we can get out of this. And the banks laughed at us like, are you kidding me right now? So I have been a firm believer that nothing is by accident. It just all happens for good. Maybe I was just a ridiculous, optimist at such a young child. But I felt that way for a really long time. And I thought, no, we're going to do it. So we kept going to banks. And there's a book called The Alchemist. And there is a part of the book where he says that when you ask for it, the universe conspires for you to have it. Right. So we really wanted this to happen, but no banks were giving us money. Our parents are like, we're not co-signing nothing. Right. So we're like, I felt defeated. One day we're visiting his uncle on his giant piece of land with this tiny little house that's probably been there since the dawn of time. And we're helping him with yard work. And I found myself crying underneath on a bench underneath a tree. And he walks up and he's like, honey, what's wrong? And I tell him the whole story. No one believes in us. This is so ridiculous. We'd be such amazing business owners. And he doesn't say anything. He gets up and he walks back into his house and he comes back out with a check. Do y'all remember what a check is? It's a piece of paper that you put amount dollars on it, and the banks treat it like cash. And he gave us the full amount. And it was something like $20,000. First of all, no clue he even had that kind of money because he was a very simple man, old truck, little tiny house. He wasn't extravagant in any way. And he gives me the check and he's like, I believe in you guys. Here you go. I want this money back in 5 years though. Right. So we're like, absolutely. Let's do this. So we get started, and by sheer determination and will and, motivation and desire, we make it work. Is this beautiful, like, manifestation of what we love. And our family grows. We're raising 3 kids, years down the road, 20 years into the business. We are just feeling like we did it. Neither one of us had to go get like a 9-to-5 job. We just made the business so lucrative that we were able to raise a family and have a lifestyle. And then 20 years in, like anything, when you're not paying attention you're not aware of where your life is headed, when you're not really looking that the road kind of has an end to it, but you're like, no, 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 I can see forward because you're only looking above the trees type of thing. Our business was taken from us by a trusted family friend. So at the time we had multiple locations, we had created multiple streams of income, but the one business was sort of our moneymaker, right? It was where all of our lifestyle came from. And it was devastating because, and I honestly, I don't know if what was devastating is the business being stolen or it was by somebody I cared and loved. right? About. So at the moment, it was about the business because how do I feed my family? That's all we've done for 20 plus years. But over time, it was the heartache of that relationship. So that's where my true healing journey starts. Now, mind you, prior to that, when we first started our business, we were given this opportunity to have mentors in this amazing space of business and in our industry who were very like God sent to us because they gave us advice that was saved us, that helped us grow, that kept us sustainable. And one of them was if you want your business to grow, you must grow with it at equal amount, right? The growth of the zeros next to your business is a growth of you. So we did that. We had always invested. We had a part of our budget was to have personal development growth, things like that. But the real journey began in the heartache. I think now, like, oh my gosh, I read all the books, I did all the seminars, I went to all the things, I went to the ranch, right? Spent 7 days but the heartache was the beginning of where I'm at today. And that was just 8 years ago. So that's how my story begins.
Well, that's quite an introduction. Wow. I'm sure the listeners are like, my God, how does a business get stolen? I mean, it does happen. I've heard it before. Do you want to share with us just very briefly, like how it was stolen?
Yeah. So when you're chasing, the real popular word in the early 2000s was hustle, right? So when you're in the hustle, when you're in the grind and you're doing all that, and you're not, and mind you, we're in the health and fitness industry. You're not really aware of how much your body is taking, the beating it's taking, the punishment it's taking from the stress and the life and raising kids. And I had gotten sick. I was actually diagnosed with hyperthyroid, where my thyroid was so large I couldn't even swallow water. And when I went into the doctor, they told me that if I'd waited 2 more weeks, I would have died from a heart attack because my heartbeat was so high. And at the same time, my husband was going into this giant legal proceedings. So it was this perfect storm of the universe is conspiring but we weren't paying attention. We were just like, no, let's just keep with the grind. And a trusted family friend, I considered her my niece. Like I'd known her since she was young. We were very close. Um, I knew her parents really well. Like I knew her family really well. And she had just finished college and had been in the workforce probably for about a year or so. And she said, hey, I'll help you guys. I will help you with the business. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect. She knows everything about the business. She grew up with us. My kids trust her. And so she moved into her home and we started treating her as the protege. So we would take her to the banks and introduce her as like, hey, we're not here to do any of the closing accounts or whatever. It's her, trust her. We put her name on a power of attorney. Like it was right. So we had put all this incredible trust in her because never in my wildest dreams did I think it would be her. And so that was about 6 months in. And I noticed she was starting to move her things out of the house. But she's like, oh, I'm moving in with my boyfriend or something to that effect. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. You have your own life. You should do all that. And then it was a Wednesday afternoon. I'll never forget it. I went to the bank that we've been banking at for 20 years. I walk in and the banker who'd known us forever was like, hey, what are you doing here? Hi, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good. Like I bank here. Why? I thought in my head, that's such a weird question. Why are you asking me? And she tells me that this person came in and closed our account and took the money and moved it somewhere else. And immediately my heart was like pounding, but I couldn't tell. Was that my hyper thing or is it? But I thought to myself, no, you know what? She just probably wants it to be in a safer bank. Okay, really? But that's what I had to convince myself is, she's doing it for us, for a better whatever. And then I decided, I'm going to go and talk to her. And we had a brick and mortar physical building, and I drove over, and my key didn't work. She had changed all the locks. And I'm like, this is really weird, because we had talked about changing locks because there had been some burglaries and things like that. But those are things you discuss with people. You don't just do it. And so I thought, well, maybe she did it and didn't want to worry us. Right. And then we get notification that she had a restraining order against us, that we couldn't be near the facility, near her. And so it was just, and and here's the thing, there was nothing that, there was no tell that it was going to happen. We hadn't fought. We hadn't had any bad words with each other. There was no conflict for it to pre-warn us, nothing at all. It was like Tuesday it was great. Wednesday it was gone. And we're already in another legal battle. So now now we have to decide, do we want to invest in more money to legally fight this situation? But it was kind of smart on her because we'd given her all of the correct documents to take over, right? So it just, yeah, it was, it, it can happen in the most awful way.
And did you find out what was the story she told the other staff or the customers about why you guys had
Oh my,
disappeared?
it just went from bad to worse, because then she told our entire database. So mind you, we've been around for 20 years. So our database was pretty large in terms of clients and customers. And she'd sent out multiple emails talking about, my daughter tried to stab her. My husband is like all of these awful, awful things that were just horrible humans. And, she is a part of a Me Too moment. It was just so many fabricated. And I remember thinking, I'm going to go to court, and you could go to court for defamation of character, all these things. But it was so exhausting, because it's not like a one-time thing where you just go to court and fight that. You have to keep coming back for other things. And then the representation costs money. There was all of these elements that I remember thinking, do I want to be right? Do I want to be right? Or do I just let this go? Because I also have to think about my children. I think about my own health at the time was falling apart. My husband's situation. It was just so much that I didn't even have the energy to respond to the billions of people that were claiming. And social media was at the rise. So now we're being attacked on social media as well. My children are being attacked on social media. There's a lot happening. So, yeah.
And that was 8 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what's the journey been like from that moment to where you are today? How have you moved forward? What have you done? Like, I'm
Oh.
really fascinated.
Well, at first, my journey was like, I'm just going to drink a ton of wine and figure it out from there. Like, just be so obsessively in denial and numbing that, because I didn't want to deal it. I think what was very difficult is betrayal. I'd never really experienced it on that level, where it wasn't just one person. She had, um, like, allied all people we had friends we'd had for years, right? All of a sudden are on her side, type of thing. So I, because I had such big, big emotions that wanted to swallow me alive, I thought, well, what I see that people do is, find something to numb them. And alcohol is the most accessible. So the unfortunate thing is that I was not very good at it. I sort of sucked at being a drinker. So that didn't work out so well. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to go get a job to distract me some more. That was in a warehouse where I didn't have to talk to anybody, but it made me physically move and do things. And that didn't work out either. Like no one would hire me. And I'm like, are you serious right now? And I even had one of my professional friends put my resume together. Ugh, I felt so defeated in that moment. And I'll never forget, I went to a networking event and I can't remember why. I was probably drunk when I said yes, because, I was in that space. And this woman I met called herself a healing coach. And I thought, what is that? What's a healing coach, right? I've done therapy. Now, mind you, I've done personal growth forever. I've read all the books. I've done therapy. Therapy was not as beneficial for me because I learned that I'm not the most vulnerable person. So I didn't like to tell people things I didn't want to have to talk about. And you can get away with that in therapy because they're not really into digging into you. So that wasn't as effective. And I meet this healing coach and I'm really intrigued. What do you do? What do you heal? Like what's this thing? And she said, hey, actually next weekend, I'm having an intensive retreat, 2 days. She's like, you should really think about it. And I thought, okay, I'll think about it. And something happened in me where I said, all right, I'll do it. At the very end, we're leaving the event. And I go that next weekend. And I have never in my life, I've been to personal development retreats. I just want to say that over again because I feel like people are, oh, is it your first time? No. I've been to these type of events when you're writing all your pain, then you burn it. But nothing was as unforgiving and unhinging as that first weekend because I wanted to talk about it in a way. I realized that in safe spaces, now in hindsight, not at the time, but in safe spaces, when 10 other people are willing to share their depth of their soul, it's okay. Like it was such a weird space because I've always been able to get away with like just sharing a little bit, I'm in a protective mode 99% of my life. Like I'll just give you a little bit to make you think I'm in, but I'm not really in. And that weekend bursts me open in a way that I can't describe. I cried so much. My head hurt. And that was the beginning. That healing course was the beginning of a journey for me.
Before I ask the next question about your journey, I'm fascinated to know about your husband. How did he cope? And did you go through the trauma and the grief process together, or did you do it separately?
My husband my mom used to always say, oh, he's such a saint. My husband has a very calm disposition and he's very mindful and thoughtful. He is like a true martial artist in terms of like the masters that are. I've always been sort of a burst of fire. And so he really retreated into meditation and prayerful. And it just made me angrier that he was so calm. So we couldn't, it was sort of friction in the household because of that, because I wanted to unleash the dragon. And he was constantly like, let's take a deep breath. So I look back now, it was saving grace for sure, because if we were both fire, yeah, there'd be a whole different story being told right now. So I think I had to have the journey the way I needed it, where he really became more in partnership with other men that he could talk to and be calm with and, be mindful and prayerful. And I loved that for him. It wasn't for me.
Yeah. So that worked for him. That was his journey.
Yeah. And as much as he wanted to invite me, I was like, yeah, no, I'm plotting ways of revenge. Like that's what I'm consuming my mind with. And he's letting it go piece by piece as it's happening. So to each his own, right?
Well, like you said, it's perfect the way it transpired and unfolded. So that event, and obviously the work that you did before, when you were running the business, were you thinking, this is it? Like, this is the business that we'll always have. This is the path we'll always be on. Did you have
Oh,
that kind of
yeah.
assumption? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I really, both my husband and I, really, it was our identity. Because, we were 22. So it was that impressionable time in our lives where we were creating with our own hands. And that level of pridefulness and sort of ego stroke was 20 years in the making. So I appreciate what it was, but I realize now how much it was our identity in an unhealthy way as well.
Yeah. And how have you used the event and the massive change that brought to your lives? How have you used that to reshape who you are today?
Oh, I don't know if it was conscious, nor was it intentional because, I didn't choose for my hard. Everybody's like, choose your hard. No, I did not choose it. The universe conspired for me to choose it. And I can't guarantee that I was intentional or had a goal of like, can this shape me? I was really driven by anger at the time. It is based on my childhood trauma and experiences. Anger is my go-to emotional stance. And that anger fueled many things, but it was really birthed from control, like my need to have control over my environment. And that shattered that, right? That shattered this
Mm.
illusion that I have control because it was also delivered by someone I cared about, that I loved deeply. So it was earth shattering. So I didn't know where to go, but divine intervention kept happening. It kept coming to me in ways. So after that weekend, then I go to this health fair event that a friend of mine is putting together, and I meet I don't know if you're familiar with EFT tapping.
Hmm.
Oh, gosh, that was an experience. And we're in this room with, 100 people. She's like, oh, just follow me. What is the issue? And I'm telling her, and I burst into tears like a 4-year-old that lost her lollipop. And I'm so embarrassed because there's just, it wasn't like in a cubicle. I'm just out in the open tapping and bawling. And I get up and I leave. I can't even handle the situation. So then I experience that. And then I experience Reiki. And then I move into like yoga, emotional movements where I'm supposed to be stretching, but instead I'm bawling. There's all of these controlled versions of me that I thought I had handled for years. And at every step of this journey, it's just like being imploded internally. But the thing is, I didn't step back and say, oh, I don't want to do the next thing. I just kept going. I just kept going for it. I just kept going to the next thing that was tearing me into pieces. And then the final thing, a year ago this month, in November of last year, I started a program called Radical Forgiveness with a very dear friend. And she, I'd known her for a couple of years and I knew what she did, but I was like, hey, I've done all the things. I've tapped it all out. I have Reiki'd it all out. I have hypnotized myself to healing. And she's like, that's great. So you want to give this a try? And I'm like, I guess. I guess. At this point, I feel like I'm pretty healed. Oh goodness. This was the core of the onion. All the others was just layers. And the forgiveness, what I found was so fascinating, wasn't about forgiving her or my father or my mother or anybody that hurt me. The deepest space was the forgiveness of me. I blew my mind, like, to a point where we're having a session and I said, "Gosh, I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable." And she's like, "Describe it to me." And I said, "Have you ever done acid?" I don't know if this is okay to say on. And she's like, "What?" And I was like, "It's a psychedelic thing. That's what I'm feeling like right now. I'm feeling out of my body." And she was like, "Oh, you're doing some big work." And I remember thinking, "Oh, this sucks." I totally see why people don't want to hear. It's so much outbursts
Mm.
of you, of the hidden parts of you, and it's been happening, right? So it started 7 years in, and then here we get to, and I'm thinking 7 years. Come on, I've been doing this 7 years straight. It should be no, no, no. There's even more bigger emotions to deal with, and so I am a hugely different human being today than I was 8 years ago. And I'll say it in this way. Um, so there's this, story about Jesus being able to sit at the dinner table with the guy who betrays him, Judas. And people say that all the time, right? They're always like, "Oh, someday I want to be able to be like Jesus and sit at the table with Judas." And I'm like, yeah, that's never going to happen for me. Like, I'm going to want to pretty much punch everybody in the face. And I can honestly say today that I hold no ill will for the people who hurt me. I have no emotional attachment to it anymore. I can tell the story to you without crying or having big feelings that I can't spit it out. And that didn't happen for a long time. It was still very much a part of my story until just recently. So that's what I would say is who I am today in relation to where I was just 6 months ago.
That's profound, wonderful, for so many reasons. And I'm sure listeners can relate to those emotions that you would have felt 8 years ago. And we've all got our own reactions to that potential scenario. Oh my God, imagine if that happened to me. How would I react? And I must say, when I first met you, and even today, the last thing I would have thought about you is that you would be someone who'd react in anger. There's
Mm,
no anger that comes out of your
yeah,
vibe. There's not. So whatever you've done and all that healing, it's worked, babe, because
yeah.
you are just a very calm, forgiving presence.
Thank you.
That's how I receive you and feel you. What a journey. What a journey you've been on. Do the closest people around you who've known you all that time, what do they say about what they see in you?
That's funny you say that. One of my best friends was just here visiting for a week, a couple weeks ago, and she noticed. I mean, she knows me at a level where all I wanted to do, like, I was not the person that would see something that's going on and just walk by, and she's seen me in those types of environments. And she was very like intrigued, like, "What have I been doing? Why are you so calm? Why are you so—" And I didn't know how to respond because I didn't recognize the change. I had just I think in I think I told her, I said, I think my process has been where awareness is always key, right? We need to be aware of who we are. And I realize that I have been my biggest adversary. I have been punishing myself more than anybody else. And been a bully to my own self. Like, that's where all of it has stemmed from. Like, I can't use the excuse of my father anymore. It just didn't work anymore. And then even when we were betrayed at that deep level, like I had to take accountability for what energy I brought that on, which was very difficult to face because it's easier to just be like, she was an evil human when really I had to come clean with my own energetic field of like, who was I being? And I said, and once I came to terms with that, I really had to sit with all that crap of my stuff and then forgive her, love her, and let her go. And then I'm now at the place where how do I fill that space now? Now it's not there. I remember one day I woke up and I said, I wonder if this is what old people feel like when they are on their deathbed. Because I felt such peace. I was like, oh, is this what because I didn't have the fight inside me anymore. I didn't have the will to just be angry when I woke up. It was such a weird space. I woke up and I just felt at peace and I thought, oh gosh, I think I'm dying, because I didn't know. I never felt, I can't even recall a time where I woke up in that much peace. And I told her that and I said, I just woke up one day and I just had this peace and I honestly thought I was dying. So I had to call my forgiveness coach. It was like, I feel like I'm dying, but is this a normal thing? And she said to me, she goes, describe it to me. And I said it. She goes, you're at peace. That's where you're at. And I just started crying because I'd never felt that before in such a manner that it took over my life, right? Something we hope for and we walk towards and we want to attain, but being in it is a different story. So I was telling her that and I said, and I just, I think I've calmed my nervous system. And she goes, how did you do it? What did you do? And I told her and she, she, she signed up. I was like, you should go see her. So, yeah.
If you're loving this conversation and want to dive deeper into purposeful work, then it's time to thank the 6-Star Leaders community for making this episode possible. The 6-Star Leaders are a group of purpose-driven business owners committed to doing business differently by embracing their unique genius and skills to make a real impact. It's a space for learning, growth, and truly becoming empowered in everything that you do. If you're ready to discover your own 6th star, go to bit.ly/6-star community-intro and book a chat to learn more. We look forward to seeing you. How are you? Well, obviously at the beginning of the podcast, I introduced you and there's that I know that you have a podcast. Tell me about how you are serving others because you've got so much energy to give and you've obviously somehow flipped from the business you're in before to what you're doing today.
Yeah.
I'd love to learn a bit more about that.
So, when I couldn't find a warehouse job, I didn't want to be in a job where it demanded my mind energy and my emotional energy. I just wanted to be like, put me in the corner and let me work and pay me. So I knew that that wasn't happening. And again, divine intervention, I kept having women reach out to me and asking me about, hey, if you were running this kind of business, what would you do? And since I had been in business for so long and I also went to school for it, I thought, oh, I was just helping them. And my son says one day, is this your new job? Like you tell people how to help their business? And I was like, is it a job? I don't know. I didn't know that there was such a thing as business coaching, right? So I know that seems like, what was that, 20 years ago? No, that was only in 2018, people. But where I was at, I just didn't know that. And I only knew life coaching. So I started researching and I decided that I would help to subsidize income because at this point, there was very little income and our savings was only for a certain amount of period, right? It wasn't going to sustain us for another 20 years. So I had to figure something out and I decided, okay, I'm going to be a business coach. And then when I understood the definition of a coach, I was like, oh, that's not me. I'm not a coach. I, being really honest, I like systems. I like structure. I like process. My husband was more of the business coach. So, I decided, okay, I'm going to be a business consultant. And it worked out really well. I was really good at what I did, and I knew what I was doing. But there was a moment I'd say about 6 months ago, where I asked myself, do I love what I do? Or am I just doing it? It's because I've always done it, because I know what I'm doing. I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever asked myself if I love what I do. I've always been let's do it. Let's just go for it and see what happens. Um, and I also realize I have to be on the edge to feel anything, right? It's my trauma response. So once that trauma subsided and I was at peace, my mind and body didn't know what to do with the life I had in front of me anymore, because I wasn't on a survival mode anymore. So I had to look at my business from a non-survival mode and go, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Is this what I love? So I decided to take time off. So at the end of July, I had my very last training. Reached out to my database and told them I was taking a break and I'd be back at the end of August. Well, the end of August came and I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I got really quiet every single day. I just shut my mouth and I just waited to see what the universe had for me. What is my spirit looking for? And then I met you and you were therapizing me through our first conversation. And you had shared with me how you made a switch. And I remember thinking, I've been thinking about making a switch, but I don't know. And after our conversation, I really meditated on it and prayed on it. And our first conversation was just a couple weeks ago. Have you noticed?
Maybe it was 4 weeks ago, maybe? I
Yeah.
think.
So it's been a
Roughly.
few weeks ago.
Mm.
And have you noticed that all my name has changed now? So my podcast used to be the evolution of the fempreneur. My goal was for women entrepreneurs to share their struggles and all these things and tips, which was great. But then after my conversation with you, I thought, yeah, I really need to rethink this and really follow what is meant for me. Stop making goals, stop making plans, stop being so rigidly hustling your way through life. Just take a breath and see what happens. And out came her truth revealed. So it's about unraveling my midlife era. And there's a lot of us out there that want to have this conversation. So that's where I'm at.
Oh, there's so many emotions. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you. I had no idea that our conversation sparked that level of insight and introspection and reflection. But good on you. I'm so glad that happened for you and that I was a small part of it. Wonderful. Um, I'm just so happy for you. I'm just reflecting on everything that you've said and shared today. And it's funny, you started the conversation and sharing the story about being a 22-year-old at college, having this opportunity, and hustle being the buzzword of the time. And I don't think hustle's ever gone away. And I think your life journey to date really emphasizes how life works, in that if you are hustling so much and you're not in tune with who you really are,
Mm-hmm.
stuff happens, or shit happens, as they say, or the universe speaks, something will happen to throw you off and show you perhaps what you need to see. And I love that you embraced the opportunity and the challenge that life threw at you to do the healing and unraveling, because that's not for the faint of heart. As you said, you went through so many healers and different things, and, it takes time. And yet what you've explained, and this is speaking from someone who's been through a lot of healing myself, I've had, very interesting journey. if you don't do the work on yourself, you can't fully know who you are. And if you can't fully know who you are, you can't be in touch with that soul and hear the beat of your soul and show up in a way that the world and the universe needs. As humans, we need to be our full selves. The only way we can be our full selves is to strip away all those masks, the hustle and the grind, the doing, doing, doing. You just said that you sat with yourself quiet and just waited for it to drop in.
Uh-huh.
Not many people do that. They push. Yeah. We are trained in our society to push, swipe, go to our phone. We're always pushing for a result, for an answer. And yet that's not how life and our organic life works. And the more that I learn about this and experience life myself, the more I realize that the answer comes when you stop pushing,
Yeah.
and it comes faster and cleaner when we have done the work to remove all those layers, because those layers are what distracts us, because we get triggered, we get, emotionally triggered, and then we try and either mask it or we we do something else. So there's a lot in there, and I just want to acknowledge the journey you've been on, and it's just so exciting to see and hear where you're at.
Yeah, thank you so much for that acknowledgement and for sharing that with me, because this is so new for me. I've just come out of my cave, so to speak, where I would, in ancient Asian martial art wisdom, you just sit in your cave and you contemplate inner peace and things like that. I just come out of it because I just decided that at the end of July. And then I was only going to do it for 1 month because I have so much control. I was only going to do it, but it didn't stop there. And then, you know, August ended, September came, and then September still, it wasn't there. And then September came and ended, and in October. And finally, I started to feel like I could hear the voice a little bit louder. And that's when I realized that I think all of us always have that inner wisdom. What I realized about me is that I have been living in fear for so long. That's where the control issue comes from, that I'm afraid to lose loved ones. I'm afraid to be abandoned. I'm afraid for all these things that I discovered within myself that I'm fearful of, that when that really wasn't where I was at anymore. And then I can receive and accept the inner wisdom. People have said to me forever, they're like, oh, speak to your higher self. And I was like, how do you do that? What does that mean? Or they'll be like, meditate and remove your thoughts. And I'm like, how do you do that? I cannot. I don't know how to remove my thoughts. They're just endless. And so there was all these things that I knew logically that I was being asked to do, but I didn't know how to be in it. The becoming of me was the journey of that sitting still. And then we had our conversation. So I'd been in this contemplation, right? And you had said this story about how you just decided that your life was making this move and you were shifting, and you just, and you said it so like passively, like, yeah, I'm just waiting to see what comes to me. And I was like, is that how you do it? Is that how you like? Because mind you, I've been trying to figure out how to do it. And so I did. So after that, every day since, I just, okay, just going to let it. Because I think what I was trying to do was control the way it was coming in, because that's what I know, right? It's familiar to me. And after you had gotten things out of me that I didn't want to tell you, I thought, oh, this woman's got some magic. So maybe I'll do it her way. I'll try it her way, because my way hasn't worked so far. And that's really where it came from. And I think you were, again, the universe conspired for me to know what that meant, right? And it just was that in that conversation, I realized that what I wasn't doing was just allowing it to exist. I was still trying to tell it how to show up, when to
Yeah.
show up.
Mm.
And that was just a solidifying moment of like, okay, 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 okay. I'm not going to tell it how to do it. And then it just happened. It just came out of, it was insane how it just came out. I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy awesome. So if, if you do less work, you get more out of it. Who would have thought?
What you said, it's true. I think the human ego, we try and tell life how we want it to be. Um, Good luck with that. How's that working for you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
One of the reasons I was so keen to have you on the show is because of where you're at in the journey. I wanted people to hear your story, and I wanted them to understand what it's like to go through and be still in the journey, on path.
Hmm.
You're unfolding and allowing the unfolding of who you really are to come out to the world. We don't all have to. It's not about being at a certain place in a point in an age or a certain time to have it all together. And your journey highlights that you actually thought you had it all together. You're on paper very successful. Look at ticked all the boxes, and then look what happened. So, and here you are in this reinvention, and you're finding yourself and blossoming this new you that is an expression of who you truly are. And that's part of the journey. So these stories and the people I have on this podcast, like they're all at different points of their journey. And we don't all have to be, you know, fully cemented in this amazing career or having an amazing business. And, it's not about that. It's about the journey. So I just want to highlight that for you and for the listeners, that you might be thinking and listening to this story and going, but hang on, what, where, where's the business side of what Wonderful does? That's got nothing to do with it. The business side is how you're serving the world. And you're doing that by creating this space through your podcast. And there might be something else that unfolds as you progress. So it's important for me to just express how grateful I am that you're willing to share where you're at this point in time, for all of us to be inspired and to understand that it is a journey.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about having this conversation with you and sharing it with you is hearing it being told from me out loud makes me see it in a much clearer way of I I wouldn't go I don't think it could have happened any other way because of who I am, right? Like we're all delivered in a way that is most what we would appeal to. Like that's the predictable part of us as human beings. Like it had to be this way. It had to be rough around the edges. It had to be extreme and intense and all of the big feelings because of who I am. And I think that one of the things I remember in the very beginning is I just was so angry. Kept asking, why me? Like, why me? Why do I have? And then I did this course called Positive Intelligence. And one of the exercises was to figure out who we were before we were that traumatic human. And I was like, what is that? Like, what does that look like? And really, I couldn't see. Like, I had to go really far, like 7 years old. And I was trying to recollect who I was at 7. I don't know. And it got me on this whole trajectory of, who is that? Who am I then? Right? Because all I know is the angry part of me, the very warrior-esque version of me that I want to cut heads and take names and things like that. I don't know who I am other than that if I didn't have that. And so what's fascinating now is I have zero desire. Y'all, and it's not even about menopause. Like I am on hormones, so it's not about that, right? it's really, I'm at such peace and I'm waiting to see who I am. That is magical. It's like someplace I can't explain because it used to be like, come on, why am I not there yet? Why am I not, look, I see Jane running. Why am I not at that same pace? It was always this space of like competitiveness. And now it does not matter. It's an uncanny emotional space to be, yeah, Janie's doing great. High five, girl. And I'm just going to see where I end up and see who I am becoming and see where it's at. And the most fascinating piece of that is you're all probably wondering, well, what happened to the money? Did you survive? Did you keep all the things? And I did. I was able to keep the home. My son graduated high school. He's a senior in college now. My daughter got married and has her third child on the way. My oldest daughter uh, kept our other business going and is even more successful than we ever were, which is like, oh my gosh. So to say that why didn't I focus on money or getting all, like why I was really ready to give it all and give it all away and be done with it. And, but I focused on me for the first time in my life. Like, what do I need? Who is wonderful? How does she need to be comforted? How does she need to be loved? Questions I didn't ever ask myself. What makes me feel loved? How do I feel? And I've read all the books, right? I've asked all those questions. I know what my love languages are. Uh, I feel that all the things that we think we need to worry about, like money, finances, how successful our business, our balance sheets, our profit and loss statements, our marketing strategy, how many numbers we need to sell this month. And all of that is a distraction into not looking at yourself because no one buys your service or products ever. People buy you all the time. They don't care if your rubber band is the most superior rubber band. They will buy it because you are at the same energetic field that they are. And I know that as a business owner, I just didn't know how to separate that in my chaos. So I just wasn't driving at numbers anymore. I was driving at me, and that changed. And I kept everything. I paid off my car. I paid off a car during this really tumultuous time. I paid off a $20,000 loan during this time. Like it, it worked. It happened. It made everything turned out exactly the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
So,
You said a lot of gold in there that I hope people listened and grabbed hold of. Now, I want to squeeze in a few extra things. We have gone kind of over time, but it's all perfect because this is just such a wonderful conversation and I don't want it to end. What would you say is your purpose or the mission that you're on at the moment?
oh my gosh, such a good, big, stinking question. Um, oh man, and I might get choked up a little bit here. I have always deemed myself a very confident person, an extroverted person. But what I didn't realize is my self-esteem was like crumbled. It never really, I don't think I've really actually, it's never really grown. It's never been nurtured. And I had the facade in front of me of this very powerful, confident woman. And it's hard to admit that I was broken. It's hard to admit that I am not that. And my whole life, I've heard these things said about me, right? Words like, you're so dynamic. Like when I'm around you, I feel so confident. I feel powerful. And I remember I always relished in that. I was like, yeah, that's right, because that's who I am. And then when I started doing all this healing work and had to confront that ego version of me and admit that I was broken, that I have been broke, and I am a human being that needs love, that wants kindness, that wants compassion, even though I don't. I think my purpose is to show that powerful warrior like women are purpose driven, motivated, grit, resilient human beings are they have hurt that has been so deeply been their anchor that vulnerability is not just a word for us. It's the way we live. It has to be the way we exist. We have to, like for me now, vulnerability is at the core of who I am. Authenticity isn't just this, Brene Brown said it and wrote it in a book and it's awesome. It's something I intentionally strive for every day because that's not as natural for me. What's natural for me is to stand tall, head straight, sword ready, shield up. That's what and I think that there's a lot to be learned from women like us in that way, that this feminine energy is just as powerful as our masculine energy. But combining it together, I think that's my purpose. I think my purpose is to give my voice breath to speak on that. I can be all the things and it's okay. I don't have to be just the one thing. I can be all the things. Like I think we do too much of this. I'm a woman, I'm 5 foot this, all of that is just static stuff. I can't change that I'm 5'2".
Are you 5'2"?
All my children are giants. Like my son's 6'2", my daughter's 5'9", my daughter's 5'8". Like they're huge and I can't, no matter how many times I try to stretch, it's not going to happen. And so I think just that level of acceptance, because I used to think, gosh, I shouldn't be so aggressive. I should really take it down a notch. All these personality tests always tell me you're red, you're assertive. And I wanted to not be that because I felt like as a healed person, I should be like light and yellow and blue and huggy. It's not me.
Yeah.
So I really feel that I have, that's my voice in the world. That's what I want to share with women is being the red is just as amazing as being a blue or a white or, where we can be fire and ocean. We don't have to just be one.
I love that. Wonderful. I love it so much. And I'm so excited to see where you are in another month and another 3 months and 6 months. Yeah. And we're going to have to keep, having catch ups. And I think having you back on the show, in say, I don't know, 3 or 6 months and to see where you are would be wonderful just to highlight that progression and show how the journey unfolds and what happens when you do the healing. You get in touch with who you are, you be who you are, you allow life to bring to you what you need because you're living this journey. It'd be so great to just, capture moments of that journey. So yeah, we'll have you back for sure. What's at where do you see yourself? Like, have you got a goal for the future?
I do. Oh man, now I gotta admit it. I, I never saw myself as a speaker or a book writer. These are things that are very, I feel like out there, right? So when my husband and I ran our business, I was always the background. I put all of our stats together, structured the whole thing. My husband was more of the front facing person. Like everybody knew him, the whole thing. And I was very content with that. I really loved it because again, vulnerability, right? And showing up. So I want to stretch myself in that space and see what that looks like. And, see what type of an orator I really truly am and how I can communicate my thoughts in a way that's effective for people to think deeper, to see the world in a different way, to understand that who we are and what we are and where we're going is not it's never, there was that saying for a long time, stay in your lane. And I remember thinking like, that seems so rigid. I've been surrounded by rigidness my whole life, right? I grew up in a very culturally rigid space, religious space, the whole thing. And I think we are just done with all of that. Like, it's not about the rebellious, oh, let's break all the rules, but let's rewrite the rules. I don't think the rules really adhere to us today as the women that we are, right? As we become who we are more and more and we step into our power, it's really about like not picking a lane, but being more about, does there have to be a lane?
So are you wanting to rewrite the rules for women or encouraging them to rewrite their own rules?
Yeah, I want to rewrite my own rules that I rigidly made for myself. And then I want to help women rewrite their own rules because that's what's holding us back. Women, where we are, there's a revolution. There is a renaissance. This is a renaissance. Everybody thinks it's a renaissance of technology. It's a renaissance of women. That is what's really changing. It's not AI, it's women that are changing the course of where we're going to be heading in the next 100 years, 200 years. And we have enough information about, oh yeah, we've been restricted our whole life. We know that it's only been 100 years since we could vote. We know all the things. It's about doing the next thing, right? It's about really then saying, okay, what does equality of pay look like for women? And then let's just do it. Let's just really, we need to really heal those deep wounds that keep us thinking that those rules still matter to us and that we need permission still and that we still need, like, ooh, I don't know. Should I be that? Yes, just be that. Be that version. And it's hard, right? Like it took my conversation with you to be like, oh, I guess I can give up that business and start another business. But we need each other to do that. We need that for each other. And I think that's where I'd like to move into is spaces where I can have that message is wider in a wider audience that's received. I don't know what that looks like to tell you the truth. I don't know. I said like speaking or books. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't, we'll see.
It doesn't matter. It'll just happen. It'll come to you. It'll unfold naturally as it's meant to, and we'll capture it and we'll check in. And I'm so excited to see what it will be. How can people get in contact with you?
They
If you'd like
can't.
them
No.
to. Okay, that's fine. Yep, sorry. Wrong. Next question.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm exclusive though. I would love, so I just started a YouTube channel called Her Truth Revealed. I am at 86 subscribers. Woo! I'm very happy about that. I would love people to come check it out. I drop a little 10-minute episode of the journey every Friday. And then my podcast is changing its look and its title from The Evolution of the Fempreneur to Her Truth Revealed. And we launch a new episode every Wednesday. Yours is tomorrow, actually. We are unveiling you tomorrow.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so those are the ways to get in touch. And then I'm on all social media under my name, Wonderful Morrison. And that is my birth name. That is not a stage name. So,
you've been saying that your whole life, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. So you can find me on my TikTok's really no, I'm not a big fan.
We'll have all your handles in the show notes below. So yeah.
So
beautiful.
let's get in touch, and I would love to also have you back because I know that your journey is also unfolding for you in a beautiful way. And we need to keep having these conversations. And because I think these conversations are the permission that the 86 million women need to hear.
Couldn't agree more. So as we come to a close, then I would like to invite you to share with our audience maybe a piece of advice or something that you'd like to leave them with. It might be just something that a tidbit.
Yes.
What would you like to share?
I would like to say surrender. Surrender, surrender, surrender. And what that looks like is that when you're in meditation and you're trying to tell yourself to shut up, don't. Just don't. Just surrender to that exact moment right there and just relax your entire body. Surrendering is so much more than the word surrender. It's like releasing, like just relax. Surrender is relaxation. Surrender into the moment. And every time your mind goes, just be like, I surrender.
Thank you, Wonderful. Thanks for your energy and your spirit and your heart and your joy and your tranquility, and for being here, coming into my world and being willing to share your story and your energy with everyone today. I'm really grateful, really grateful.
Oh my gosh, me too. You came into my life at the most divine time, and I am forever grateful for that. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I look forward to speaking with you very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Mission Activated. If today's conversation resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Remember, your mission matters. When you live on purpose, not only do you transform your own life, but you inspire others to do the same. Until next time, stay aligned, keep activated. I'll see you then.